Coming up, a closer look at the recent activity from To the Stars Academy.
It wasn't an event, it was events.
My hope is with the help of you all and everybody else, we can move this topic forward.
And their unapologetic connection to elite establishment Democrats.
We ought to be serious about investigating what's going on. Other countries have done that.
Also, recently released Navy patents that sound eerily similar to the recent sightings reported by Navy pilots.
They'd been coming down from above 80,000, come down, hang out at 20,000 for about 3 hours, and then go straight back up.
Finally, an exploration of the controversy surrounding the Sicily fires that occurred in 2004.
It should, right?
But first, with UFO sightings down, why this continuous uptick in mainstream media coverage?
New reporting this morning on unidentified flying objects accelerating to hypersonic speed.
But you said you've been briefed on unidentified flying objects. Are they real?
Personally, I tend to doubt it.
Do I believe it? Not particularly. But we'll watch it. You'll be the first to know.
It's one of those rare moments where if everything the mainstream media was telling us was exactly as it seemed, it would still be pretty incredible.
Either another country has leapfrogged the United States in technology or extraterrestrial.
Those are the leading hypotheses, yes.
Some United States senators have received an actual briefing on this UFO phenomenon.
How concerned should we be about the briefing that you received on UFOs?
Some of the press reports are accurate. I think people are taking this issue much more seriously, which I think in previous generations may not have been the case.
And of course, there are so many who think they've now become vindicated.
There are people who are truly just out of their heart searching for the truth.
Who think that what we're seeing here is not coincidence or happenstance, but an intentional disclosure. That this process is happening on purpose and by design, and that everything that's been said for the past 70 years is not purely psychological.
The UFO phenomenon is the partial penetration of our own cultural space by others.
Now, I saw that. I don't give a goddamn what anybody else says about it. I saw that.
Or that is all just wishful thinking, and we're lying to ourselves. Or being lied to. The membership of To the Stars Academy, the putative UFO disclosure team, has grown. Along with the initial group of government insiders and Tom DeLonge, they now include Dr. Colm Kelleher, a molecular biologist who wrote the rather eccentric book Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Something forced 4 2,000-pound bulls to cram themselves into this trailer without opening this door. It's completely impossible.
Although Dr. Kelleher is obviously very intelligent and credentialed, and he's always appeared sincere, I'm cautious of his involvement, as he's often eager to apply a, quote, paranormal explanation to UFOs. Separating UFOs from its stigma requires that it remain separated from the paranormal, because once that spooky door opens, fictitious notions of Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster follow. This is a problem. Science and, quote, paranormal activity are diametric and can't coexist in one's inquiry regarding UFOs, which by all accounts appears to be entirely physical. This doesn't mean that consciousness or psychology aren't playing a role, but that the means for testing these factors must come from the mechanistic framework of science, not from a metaphysic or an appeal to the paranormal, at least for now. Another addition is Dr. Paul Rapp, listed here as a brain function and consciousness consultant, and Dr. Norm Kahn, who's spent more than 30 years in the CIA working in counter-biological weapons programs. And the range of opinions about the intentions of this group are endless. Some think they are truly altruistic. Others think they're trying to deceive the public or even foreign governments about top-secret technology they might be privy to. But there's one thing that no one can doubt, and that's how powerful their influence has been in American media in the past 2 years. Make no mistake, the primary, if not the only reason we're seeing all this UFO stuff in the news is because of TTSA. More specifically, because of Chris Mellon, Louis Elizondo, and Jim Simivan, 2 of whom were spies for the CIA, and all of whom still consult with intelligence agencies and are still under NDAs. So because of their high status and high connections, they're able to get outlets like the New York Times or the Washington Post to print seemingly sincere stories about UFOs with confidence, which gives the topic a newly perceived sense of credibility to the public, making it easier for mainstream journalists to finally pop the question to the president.
Do you think you'd know if there were evidence of extraterrestrials?
Well, I think our great pilots would know. And some of them really see things that are a little bit different than in the past. So we're going to see.
This is all because of these 3 men who have single-handedly influenced, for better or worse, a nation's perspective on UFOs or UAPs. And influencing nations is what these men do best, because they've been influencing the affairs of foreign nations for decades.
I'm the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Clinton and Bush administrations and the former Minority Staff Director of the Senate Intelligence Committee. So that was part of my function on the Secretary of Defense's staff to review sensitive reconnaissance activities, programs that, if exposed, could cause embarrassment to the United States. Embarrassment to the United States. Embarrassment to the United States. Some of the most sensitive activities involve covert action programs where we're seeking to covertly influence events abroad, influence events abroad, influence events abroad, influence events abroad, influence events abroad.
If there were evidence of extraterrestrial.
We're joined now by Chris Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense.
Some information about what was going on at Area 51.
Senate Intelligence Committee conducts oversight of all U.S. foreign intelligence agencies and programs. My name is Christopher Mellon. I'm the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense.
Chris Mellon is part of one of the richest, most influential banking families in the U.S. He's connected to nearly every avenue of power in America. This makes it difficult to trust him and by proxy to the Stars Academy. However, some within TTSA do relieve some of those misgivings. Hal Puthoff.
So-called empty space isn't really empty at all. It's actually full of energy.
Although he too spends time researching the paranormal, his raw science is fascinating. In '98, he created a patent that was rejected for 5 years as pseudoscience. But upon closer inspection, patent agents realized the invention was operable. In other words, Puthoff's patent was using physics that were so advanced and albeit obscure, it took patent agents over 5 years to understand it. So if his involvement is sincere, which I think it is, then maybe Chris Mellon and Luis Elizondo's involvement is also sincere. No one can be certain, not even Hal Puthoff, and the possibility they're all imparting some kind of psychological operation is conceivable. But I guess no matter how closely one looks at it, currently, their intentions remain mysterious.
But what if for a moment, mankind wasn't singular?
We'll say that I think there are probably multiple phenomena going on. We see enough distinct different kinds of vehicles and different patterns of behavior.
What if the things that make us human most, like emotions, love, are not necessarily unique traits to humans within the universe? Are we, as a society, even prepared to have that conversation? Maybe other things can experience that too, and maybe the definition of being human isn't 2 arms, 2 legs, and looking like this, or having a body, or having hair or no hair. Maybe being human is far more profound than that, and maybe those traits aren't unique to us.
He absolutely believes not only that alien life exists, but that aliens are here, that aliens are visiting Earth. You share that view?
I feel it would be, from a congressional standpoint, it would affect my credibility if I started talking about everything I know.
The American people have no idea, really no idea, about the immensity of the threat in space. And I've made this comment in a classified setting, that I wish the American people could be present in this room, because our adversaries know what they are doing. We know what they are doing. They know, we know what they are doing. But the American people have no idea.
Blumenthal was not talking about aliens, but either Russia or China, both of whom are developing war-fighting capabilities for space, hence the current administration's insistence on a space force. But is it possible that there are even bigger things to worry about regarding our adversaries?
I think it's probably some sort of Russian or Chinese DARPA-like aircraft.
My greatest fear is that an adversary did figure it out, and we are just way, 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 way behind.
У новой системы ограничения по дальности практически нет. Как видно,
in a patent recently granted to the US Navy, one engineer proposed building a craft using an inertial mass reduction device.
When I say it was following us, I don't mean individual aircraft. I mean, wherever we were, they were there.
Claiming the craft would use a kind of quantum bubble and allow the ship to travel in water, air, and space.
They were literally breaking the laws of physics in my eyes.
Many are saying this patent could potentially explain the recent Tic Tac sightings from Navy personnel, but this notion is misguided and largely overblown. One reason is it assumes this patent is the first of its kind, but these are anything but new, with almost 80 claiming to have cracked the code of, quote, flying saucers. Jack Frost claimed his patent, called Avrocar, a real flying saucer, could move from supersonic speeds to completely still, vertically climb to 100,000 feet, and make rapid turns. The Air Force invested $10 million in the craft, and this is during the 50s. Today, that would be roughly $100 million. It was top priority, it was top secret, but was recently declassified, letting us see for the very first time the beautiful, majestic power of Jack Frost's real flying saucer. The craft never made it more than 3 feet off the ground and was discontinued. So as it pertains to all the flying saucer, triangular spaceship, and wormhole patents, we don't appear to have gotten very far, which is unsurprising. Just because there's a patent doesn't mean that we have it. The truth is, these are likely attempts to back-engineer a technology we don't really understand and have yet to fully replicate, unless you think we have replicated it, but it's tucked away in a black project somewhere. But if that's the case, the patent would be top secret. If the US did have this craft that could go near the speed of light, as this new patent claims, which is nearly 60 million miles per hour, which can go around the Earth 7.5 times in a second, you expect me to believe that the government would have this paradigm-changing technology, a technology that would essentially make them a god, available on Google? I doubt that. So I simply don't buy the idea that this one patent represents where the Navy currently is technologically. I don't think so. What's far more feasible is that we don't know what these things are, and we don't know how to build them. Yet many disagree with me here and cling to what they think is the more conventional explanation to UFOs, which is that they're just likely top secret man-made technology. But if you think this, and also think that most of these pilots are likely seeing what they say they're seeing, even if it's just sometimes, that means that you think that somehow humans have created aerial vehicles that appear to trained observers to, quote, defy physics.
Not the world's greatest drawer, but as you can see here, it almost looks like a gyroscope, right? The way it moves, the points coming out of the top and the bottom of what appears to be a disc or at least a central mass on the object.
Well, when exactly did we figure out how to do that?
The jets were like trying to trail this thing and it would just run off and leave them. It would just gone.
And these objects were consistently reported to take off into outer space.
And then went up at that acute 90-degree angle, and then it shot off and went straight into space or in the air or wherever it came from.
And all the while, this man-made, physics-shattering, solar system-traveling spacecraft, watercraft, aircraft, craft has remained completely secret. Well, with the exception of these videos, but, you know, the builders and funders and engineers and physicists and mathematicians and generals and aerospace engineers and all of the others who would have had to participate in the creation of this craft have still managed to keep this secret.
A lot of people want to believe that this is a foreign adversary of terrestrial origin that we are probably already aware of. I find that highly unlikely.
I'm not saying black projects don't exist. Back engineering, exotic metamaterials are all presumably stuck deep inside of compartmented programs. We also know that foreign adversaries are currently exceeding the US in hypersonic maneuverable missiles, clocked up to 6,000 miles per hour.
Мы назвали его Сармат.
But look at that massive plume of smoke. This is the most advanced stuff we seem to have, and we know exactly what we're looking at here because these missiles follow all the laws of physics, as they should. These speeds will eventually have commercial applications.
Hypersonic technology is a really important investment area for the future. In the next decade or two, you're going to see that become a reality.
But no one here is even close to talking about an object that far exceeds supersonic.
Oh, well above supersonic. It like a bullet out of a gun, it took off.
And no one is talking about an object that has no exhaust plume, or that can suddenly stop, or hover motionless in the clouds for days, then bolt down to the sea.
This object drops out from the sky. If you see a shooting star, it'll break up, but this thing just kept coming down and it stopped. At that moment, the object goes from right to left in a split second. It went so fast that we actually had to turn our bodies to it.
I also point this out because those who think these objects can be explained by man-made top-secret conspiracies actually think they're using Occam's razor.
I think it's probably some sort of Russian or Chinese DARPA-like aircraft. Maybe even our own DARPA. Maybe even our own DARPA that the Pentagon doesn't even know about.
Admittedly, Occam's razor is a somewhat overrated subjective mental model that can be wrongly used as a replacement for logic and insight, but nonetheless, it's valuable. So judge for yourself. What's more likely, the man-made conspiracy theory that requires a labyrinth of assumptions, or that we just don't know what these things are? Patents get pushed through often that might work in theory, but in practice are currently improbable. It's likely this is the stage this patent is in, but don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing ambition. We should definitely be investing in this area, given that China and Russia already are.
I guarantee you that he's got a lot of information on this.
I'm saying that it's far more probable that the Tic Tacs are not attributable to man, in the same way that flying saucers are not attributable to man, both of which are reported to maneuver in similar ways, and both of which seem to be linked in some way. This, however, has gone unreported in the media.
And I see something in the water. If you've ever been out to sea with like an underwater seamount, as the waves come and there's something right under the surface, they'll break.
A rare theory is that the craft David Fravor saw just under the surface of the water was a flying saucer. For a point of reference, here's Naval Operations Specialist Trevor, who was on board the Nimitz during the Tic Tac incidents in 2004.
The object that I saw was a flying saucer shape, not a Tic Tac. This object had shot from the ocean up. That object made a couple different quick maneuvers, but everybody says Tic Tac, I don't remember that at all. Straight dome, but like a flat bottom. It looked just like a flying saucer, just like we all know, we've all seen reports of, just a dome with a flat bottom, just like that. And I've tried verifying this with other people, and they just do not want to talk about it. I'll never forget that day, the rest of my life. It blew my mind.
I find it telling that no one in the media or no one in To the Stars Academy even mentions this report. I understand the DoD wants to move away from the stigma, but I worry that while attempting to do this, they leave out pertinent information that can help the public link these recent events.
It looked just like a flying saucer
With past events.
So it looked like a round disc.
Helping us to substantiate the phenomenon as a reoccurring presence with noticeable patterns.
And then you saw it, and then boom, it was gone.
And over to the entrance of Pearl Harbor, there was 9 silver discs.
A dome with a flat bottom.
It was shaped like 2 saucers put together with a golf ball on top. Tell me who did that. Tell me in 1964, who had that technology?
But if you think that flying saucers, or UFOs generally, are purely a cultural invention, why then have governments around the world been continually trying to create them? Is all of this a coincidence or incompetence? I don't think so. I think it's simple. Flying saucers and other aerial phenomena are real and physical, and for decades, aerospace projects have been continually trying to recreate them, the success of which remains to be seen. During the fires, scientists within a team called the Civil Protection Unit were dispatched by the Italian government to investigate, resulting in a $1 million study concluding that the fires were most likely, quote, caused by high-power electromagnetic emissions, which were not man-made. There is no video, however, that shows, quote, spontaneous combustion, only things which are already on fire. A decade later, the fires returned, so authorities installed cameras around the town, resulting in the arrest of Giuseppe Pizzino, age 26, who was allegedly seen causing nearly 40 of the fires in 2014. His father, Nino Pizzino, was placed under investigation, and during the initial fires in 2004 was, curiously, the very first to report one.
The most serious occurrence happened in this room while we were eating. Electrical fuse box here, the whole thing burned.
Journalist Ariel Ramchandani investigated the event, concluding that Giuseppe was indeed responsible. She does state, however, that this is not the consensus of those in the town, who continue to claim the fires erupted spontaneously. I myself, along with law enforcement and national journalists, have seen objects burst into flames out of nowhere. Former mayor of Caneto di Caronia.
I witnessed a fireman throw an electrical motor out of the window of a house. It was incredibly hot, almost melted. I want to add that all the electrical connections in that area had been cut off by then.
But this could be attributed to Giuseppe's arson, given he was still in the town when this was seen. Among the items that were charred included televisions, radios, cell phones, even a person's bed.
Mattresses would catch fire spontaneously while people were sleeping on them. I was scared and went to stay with my mother.
Could Giuseppe have set a mattress on fire while someone was sleeping on it without being noticed? It sounds difficult, but considering the architecture in the village, being able to maneuver in and out of open doors and windows does look achievable. The Civil Protection Unit eventually quarantined the entire area, and wouldn't you know, the fires stopped. It would be dishonest of me, however, if I didn't include the claims made by the scientific investigation, which states that after the evacuation, anomalies continued.
USB drives and computers were malfunctioning. Cars were locking and unlocking on their own.
This is Francesco Venerando, who led the Civil Protection Unit's investigation. While the village was evacuated, his team, which included a scientist from NASA, began monitoring magnetic forces, and to their surprise, documented hundreds of massive fraction-of-a-second bursts of electromagnetic energy.
The phenomena were many and happened repeatedly over time. It wasn't just one episode.
Tracking the pulses up to 15 gigawatts, which is more power than the space shuttle generates on liftoff.
We concluded that these phenomena weren't caused by natural events.
These findings are similar to another scientific report by the Italian Air Force, but written 70 years prior, which identifies the town of Caronia as an area with, quote, electromagnetic phenomena. After months of research, the team in Caronia converged on a controversial hypothesis.
From everything we monitored, we think it plausible that the electromagnetic forces came from the sea.
And these are only the leaked results. The entire official report was made secret by the Italian government.
We think the most likely reason that the report was never made public was that it might have contained something that couldn't be divulged.
Francesco was asked if he thought Giuseppe's arson explained everything. He gave 3 reasons why it didn't. Number 1, the anomalies were not limited to the inside of homes, but affected the functioning of electrical equipment, but most notably, their compasses.
Compasses wouldn't work anymore. Not only when they were near magnetic forces or metal objects, but wherever you put them.
Number 2, the plant species Ampelodesmos, the roots of which internally combusted, while incredibly, at the same time, no other surrounding tree or shrubbery was disturbed. To think this is the work of man would have involved the deployment of means, men, time, and money beyond rationality. And number 3, the spate of UFO sightings reported in Caronia. August 2nd, 2004, Italian military personnel reported 2 disc-like objects hovering over the sea. Taking this image, an analysis of which I will leave up to you. But he also gave a 4th and relatively controversial reason, which, for better or worse, brings us all the way back to the Stars Academy.
We had been hearing for a while rumors that there was a potential attack on an Italian aircraft.
Elizondo met with a group of Italian investigators, some of whom retired military, that study UFOs.
On 2004 in Sicily, a craft appeared a few hundred of meters behind the copter tail, and it shot a ray that destroyed helicopter wings.
The History Channel claimed the helicopter belonged to the Italian military, but this is false. It belonged to Francesco's Civil Protection Unit. The reason, Francesco states, the helicopter was forced to land and no one was harmed, by the way, was attributed to electromagnetism. No biological residue was found on the damaged blades, and the electrical conductivity inside the copter was so badly damaged it had to be entirely replaced by the manufacturer. Antonio Spinato, a local who claimed to have witnessed the event.
I noticed the helicopter was flying in a funny way, as if it was going to crash. So I grabbed my camera and took some photos.
This is an insignificant photograph, but Antonio's testimony, valuable or not, does mirror claims made by locals and officials alike.
At night, you can easily spot lights coming from the sky or the sea.
Francesco states that arson cannot account for any one of these 4 factors, and his hypothesis of the location of the massive electromagnetic emissions are corroborated by the team, some of whom were part of the Civil Protection Unit's investigation.
The source was in the open sea.
Do we have an altitude?
It's not visible.
Because it was in the bottom of the sea.
According to multiple scientific investigations, the village of Caronia is a location with electromagnetic anomalies, and also, according to the Italian government, an arsonist. Neither of these necessarily cancel each other out, and both do seem to be true. Unless, of course, the scientific investigations, the reports of electrical parts and compasses malfunctioning, the internal combustion of the Ampelodesmos, and the sightings of UFOs in the same area are all a coincidence or incompetence. But it really is up to you, isn't it? And so it is with almost all of this topic, where there's just enough evidence to intrigue, but never enough to confirm. It's in that space between doubt and certainty, between gut intuition and brute facts, not solely within the strict confines of skepticism or within the baseless frivolousness of pure open-mindedness, but in between, where I find the truth tends to reveal itself. But that's just me. What do you think?
This object had shot from the ocean up.
They were reported to have gone into the water.
That day changed my whole perspective on life. Gave me some relief.
One possible view of the flying saucer is that it is a kind of projection from the consciousness of the planet, that it is in fact a kind of alchemical object haunting human historical time with a symbol of totality, the kind of totality that our religions and our mystical yearnings are so at pains to concretize for us. Saying that the flying saucer is a psychic object does not mean that it is not a physical object. But unless we, as egocentric beings, clarify our relationship to the unconscious, then I think the flying saucer is going to remain quintessentially mysterious.
He looked me straight in the eye. He says, yeah. He says it was a flying saucer. And it came up to 10,000 feet like that a fraction of a second. The magnetic compass, which is in the center of the panel, was swinging back and forth.
Compasses wouldn't work anymore, wherever you put them.
I said to Fred, I said, did you see that? He said, you should have seen it when the craft was close. He said it was spinning.